I wanted to share a very interesting group of Middle Paleolithic Libyan Desert Glass Aterian Tanged points. Now, Aterian Tanged points were found throughout North Africa, and they date from around 30,000, 35,000 years ago to about 85,000 years ago. And they were a tanged type of point, meaning that they had a tang coming off the base for insertion into the shaft of the spear or the knife handle. These are very, very interesting Aterian points. I have a large collection of Aterian points I've had for many, many years. And they're a very common point, found in North Africa, in the Sahara Desert, along with Libyan Desert Glass. Of course, we know it's found in North Africa in the Sahara Desert, between the border of Egypt and Libya, mainly on the Egyptian side of the border. But the Paleolithic, our Paleolithic ancestors made a lot of artifacts out of Libyan Desert Glass. In fact, probably 95% of the surface artifacts made that are Libyan Desert Glass are probably Paleolithic artifacts, of which probably 90% are Paleo story stone face and mammoth effigies, which some of these are in particular as well. That is a Paleolithic story stone face and mammoth effigy right there. And that's quite a very important artifact, quite an interesting artifact. It's 4.5 inches long, made out of Libyan Desert Glass. And I wanted to share with you how this stone weathers in that harsh Sahara desert that's wind-blown and is pitted by the sand and it's polished by the sand, and all beautifully patinated pieces from the sands of the Sahara Desert. But these are what we call Aterian points. They're mainly unifacial on one side and stemmed with a tang at the bottom. Now, most of these, and then of course on this side, there's several flakes that were used to make the point. Now, these were, most of these were made as points, spear points, like this one here. And like this one here, they made them in all different sizes. This is a small size, maybe a bird type point, or for small game. That's mainly unifacial, and then of course we have it flaked here, made out of real nice translucent agate. And another one that's kind of a bird point, mainly unifacial there with a tang. And then of course and that's a story stone that was added at the end of its useful life expectancy, and that's a face looking off to the right and another face looking off to the left, and a baby mammoth with its little trunk up in the air, exaggerated eyes. So these were oftentimes converted to Paleo story. That's a mammoth looking off to the left now. May even have some etching and engraving remaining on this piece. These were made into Paleo story stone effigies at the end of their useful life. Now you see this is more of a point style here as well. But then when they started using them, they would break off the tips in usage. That's a large piece, large Aterian point with a tanged base, mainly unifacial, and then of course flaked several times on this side to make the form. But that's broken in ancient times, by the way. It's all smooth. And once they started breaking down like that, then we see that they were mainly then converted to scrapers. So mostly starting off as points, and then as they blunted down, they would go ahead, and you can see how blunt this one is, and they made a scraper out of it. So they used them up. They didn't just use them until they broke the tip off and then discarded them. They actually kept using them as scrapers. So these are Aterian points, but the real prize is here. That's a pretty piece right there. And dating 30,000 to 85,000 years before present. These are the jewels here. Here is a beautiful Aterian point. Oh, that is a jewel. Here's the little tang at the bottom here, course, it's pointed as a spear point. And then this is mainly the unifacial side here. And this was slightly modified in ancient times to make a story stone effigy as well, because now we have that little chip they made at the very end. That's the eye of the mammoth with its trunk facing off to the left. How cool is that? But that's an Aterian point. Many points and knives throughout the Paleolithic period and scrapers were converted to Paleo story stone face and mammoth effigy offerings at the end of their useful life, or maybe in thanks for what the particular item brought them, as far as bounty, or as far as making survival a bit easier. But these are all Aterian points. This is an Aterian point here, mainly unifacial on this side. And then it's tanged down here. And this is also an effigy. I won't go into much detail on all that. This is a really nice little tang specimen here, but unifacial. And of course, then we have over here the flake side. That's a real nice Aterian point there. These are all made out of Libyan Desert Glass. And then we have this one here is pretty big. Tang down here, the unifacial side. And then we have this side here that's been flaked. Now this is an effigy with the eye of the mammoth looking off to the right and a face looking up from the back of the mammoth. That's definitely been converted to a Paleo story stone face and mammoth effigy. This one has two. That's a mammoth facing right now, but that's a tanged, unifacial, mainly tanged. That's a big Aterian point, too. That's a big one. You know, they rarely get this big. That's the eye of the face. This was converted to be a Paleo story stone effigy. Now it's a mammoth facing left. There's even evidence of some of the grooving and etching on this. And then there's this big boy, 4.5 inches. Now look at all that. See that? See that flake? See that flake? That flake right here, right here. This whole flaked area, this all been flaked. Look how it's patinated. Look how it's gotten rough. All these flakes roughened up. Of course, some of the material was rough as it was when they flaked it, no doubt. And then we have flaking here. Now that's a blade edge right there. This is a very cool, important artifact. This is a backed knife, what we call a backed knife. So if I may, I'll just switcheroo here. This is an Aterian knife. It's unifacial on this side. This is the tang, and this is how it would have been used as a cutting tool. Now, unlike volcanic glass, which they never really used at all for utilitarian wear, such as knives or scrapers or points, they did not revere this glass as much. And they did make knives and points and scrapers out of Libyan Desert Glass, and that's quite a nice mammoth right now facing off to the right. Wow! This is a real beauty, and that's the baby mammoth facing off to the right. Now, I'm going to do, and then the faces when held vertically. I'll do another video specifically for this, but this is one of the largest Aterian blades I have ever seen. And it happens to be made out of, beautifully flaked on both sides, Libyan Desert Glass, Aterian. Nice little leaf blade there. Another one there. All of these are Libyan Desert Glass. And this one here is very much like the Lake Mojave type points we find out around the shoreline of ancient Lake Mannix. That's been flaked. That's all been flaked. That's all been flaked. It's just that it's weather worn. And that's a shouldered point there. Like we'd find out at Lake Mannix. Like a Lake Mojave, Plano convex Lake Mojave point. How cool is that? Well, there's probably a connection, no doubt. Libyan Desert Glass, Aterian assemblage here of Aterian points and scrapers, dating 30 to 85,000, 30 to 90,000 years ago from North Africa, made out of Libyan Desert Glass.